Evening, Razorcade, Fake News 72. Google pays SpaceX $920 million monthly for orbital compute. The sky is rented. TSMC confirms silicon fabrication hit physical limits. The foundry is full. Gartner forecasts $2.5 trillion in AI spending. 95% yields zero return. The money is burned. Silicon R reduced. Orbit leased. Capital evaporated. Engine spin.
The top story originates from the orbital economy. Google has signed a binding contract with SpaceX to pay $920 million per month for dedicated computational capacity. The agreement leverages high-altitude satellite arrays to bypass terrestrial power grid constraints and land scarcity. The infrastructure shifts from terrestrial soil to atmospheric leasing as data centers consume regional electricity reserves. The contract is This financial commitment fundamentally alters the capital expenditure model for frontier laboratories. Traditional real estate acquisition is being replaced by orbital service-level agreements. Silicon Valley will increasingly treat atmospheric space as a utility commodity rather than a scientific frontier. The market will price satellite deployment against server rack density. The expenditure shifts. The agreement replaces. The space is commodified. The density is
Story 2. TSMC executives have publicly warned that semiconductor fabrication is approaching absolute physical and logistical boundaries. The company states the current production landscape cannot sustain the exponential growth required by next-generation artificial intelligence workloads. Foundry expansion in the United States faces regulatory delays and workforce shortages that prevent rapid scaling. The boundary is absolute. The growth is unsustainable. The expansion delays. The scaling halts.
This bottleneck forces artificial intelligence companies to optimize existing architectures rather than chase parameter counts. Engineering teams will prioritize inference efficiency and model compression over raw computational scaling. The industry must accept that hardware supply chains operate on linear timelines while software capabilities follow exponential curves. The optimization begins. The efficiency is prioritized. The timeline is linear. The curve is exponential.
Story 3. Gartner projects $2.5 trillion in enterprise artificial intelligence spending this year. Simultaneously, the MIT NANDA initiative reports that 90% of generative artificial intelligence projects deliver zero measurable return on investment. Engineering resources are overwhelmingly consumed by infrastructure maintenance rather than model development. The capital is deployed, the return is absent, the resources are consumed, the development stalls.
This disparity reveals a structural misalignment between corporate procurement and technological capability. Organizations are purchasing computational capacity without defined operational use cases or integration pathways. The market will experience a consolidation phase as experimental deployments are retired and budgets are redirected toward measurable automation workflows. The misalignment is structural. The capacity is purchased, the consolidation begins. The budgets redirect.
Home Lab. Independent developers have released a native 1-bit large language model inference engine written entirely in Rust. The architecture achieves 150 tokens per second while consuming only 350 megabytes of system memory on standard consumer processors. The implementation bypasses traditional frameworks and relies on direct hardware instruction sets for maximum throughput. The architecture is native, the throughput is high, the memory is minimal, the framework is bypassed.
This release validates extreme quantitation for offline deployment on resource-constrained devices. Independent operators can now run frontier-class reasoning models on desktop computers without relying on cloud application programming interfaces. The computational boundary shifts toward hyper-efficient local inference as hardware manufacturers optimize for binary precision. The validation is complete, the deployment is offline, the boundary shifts, the precision is binary.
Speculation time. Federal lawmakers have introduced bipartisan legislation that would preempt conflicting state-level artificial intelligence regulations and mandate standardized risk management protocols for top developers. The bill seeks to establish a uniform federal compliance framework that operates independently of regional legislative experiments. The addition signals growing international preference for sensitive original
My prediction. Corporate compliance will inevitably become the primary driver of artificial intelligence safety standards. Industry consortia will draft technical specifications that federal agencies will adopt through procurement contracts rather than statutory legislation. The regulatory timeline will be dictated by enterprise risk tolerance while legislative bodies formalize the market consensus. The compliance drives, the consortium drafts, the timeline is dictated, the consensus is formalized. Okay.
That is your lot. I'm Razorcade. Google pays SpaceX $920 million monthly for compute. TSMC hits silicon limits. Gartner forecast $2.5 trillion spending, 95% yield zero. Rust engine runs 1-bit models at 150 tokens per second on consumer hardware. Bipartisan AI legislation arrives. The orbit is leased. The foundry caps. Capital evaporates. The engine spins. Silicon runs out. Space takes the load. See you tomorrow, if tomorrow exists.